I was reading this article the other day about how the top sovereign wealth fund in the world thinks that the European stock market will outperform the American over the next 10 years. And it's got me thinking, I don't really know much about the European stock market. I'm willing to bet most people don't either. So I did some research into this topic, and here's what I learned. I want to start with talking about the PE ratios of two of the top funds tracking these markets, the S&P 500 tracking the American, and the STOXX Europe 600 tracking European markets. Now, what even is the PE ratio, and why is it relevant? Well, the PE ratio is basically how much we're willing to spend for each dollar a company earns. So, for example, if company A has a PE ratio of 27, that means we're willing to pay $27 for every dollar that they earn. In a more larger scale, if they were to earn $100 in 1 year, we would be willing to pay $2,700 for one share of that stock. Now, if company B had a PE ratio of 18, we would only be willing to pay $1,800 even if company B also earned $100 in the last year. But why would we almost pay $1,000 more if both companies are earning $100 per year? Well, the answer is growth, right? So a company like Coca-Cola that has been around for a long time, we don't expect their earnings to grow much more than they are today. Versus a company like Nvidia, which is very dominant right now and growing rapidly, we might be willing to pay more because we think that their earnings will grow in the future. Basically, we're paying a premium today in the hopes that it is actually a good bargain given how much that company will make in the future. So what does this mean for the case of the S&P 500 and the STOXX Europe 600? Well, as we can see, the average stock in the S&P 500 has a PE ratio of 27, while the average stock in the European market has a PE ratio of 18. What that basically means is we expect the American market to grow more than the Europe market. And this will probably be the case, given that has been the case for my entire life. But the thing is it too high of a PE ratio, right? When people say the market is overvalued, what they mean is that the current price is not aligned with the earnings today, and it's too much of a stretch for the earnings in the future. So it makes us basically want to take a look at the Europe markets and, is it actually maybe a good investment? And as important as the index funds are, at the end of the day, they're just tracking individual stocks. So without knowing anything about the individual stocks, we're not really seeing the whole picture. So let's take a look at some of those individual stocks. Starting with ASML. Now, ASML is actually the second largest company in the entire European Union, and I've never even heard of them. So what does ASML do and why are they important? Well, to really understand that, we first have to talk about the semiconductor industry in general, and these two companies that produce them, TSMC and Intel. Now, the thing about semiconductors is they're basically essential for AI, and a big part of it is having the best and fastest chip possible. And really, any edge is good. So these companies will pay millions, if not billions, just to get any edge on their competitor, because having the best chip is really going to impact your sales. Now, why does that matter for ASML? Well, they actually make machines that are critical in the semiconductor process. ASML is the only company in the entire world that makes the ultraviolet lithographic machine responsible for making semiconductors. That means they have a monopoly on this. They're the only company that makes this, and we need them to produce these critical semiconductors. So basically, this is a good company, right? Like, we need them around, and they're probably not going anywhere soon. Now, even with ASML being important as it is, it would be a bit foolish to claim that the entire European stock market is doing well because of one company. So let's take a look at one more stock, SAP. And this is actually the largest stock in the entire European stock market. Now, what does SAP do? Well, it's a bit more vague than ASML, but essentially they offer general software solutions to other big companies. What that means is they basically assist with things like payroll, supply chain, sales, operations, human resources, basically any problem that a company has digitizing or working with in a technical sense, SAP can offer some assistance in that area. In fact, SAP actually provides software solutions for 70% of the world's top 500 companies. So even though it's not exactly clear what solutions they're providing, clearly they're providing solutions worth paying for. So, they are a big player in the world's economy, and again, they're probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, that being said, clearly I only showed two stocks, so obviously there's a lot more to learn about the European stock market, but I did think it was interesting just how important these companies actually are, And, for someone who didn't really know anything about the European stock market going in, this was really interesting for me. And if you found it interesting, I encourage you to learn a little bit more about the European stock market as well. Thanks for watching.